Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Furman Basketball with head coach Bob Ritchie. We have reached the final week of the regular season for 23-24, and this time next week we'll be talking about the Southern Conference Tournament up in Asheville. We want all of our fans to get your tickets for that event as well. We will, as always, open with a statement from head coach Bob Ritchie and then take questions from the assembled media here. Bob?
Well, appreciate everybody being here today, and I guess we played, 4 games since the last time we met, and won 3 of them, and had a chance to win that 4th one. But overall, our team's really showing some growth in this last stretch, and definitely our best ball of the year, in collection in terms of how we're doing it right now. And, if you look at us from the ETSU game in Johnson City to now, you look at us analytically and you compare the numbers to where we are to where we were, it's very clear that this is our best ball of the year. And even in that stretch that we won 5 in a row, 4 more home games. We've been on the road a little bit more in this stretch. And I think you look at Saturday's performance versus Wofford, and you look at the Chattanooga performance, even the Sanford performance, some really good games in there that we can see our offensive numbers trending up, which is a positive, with our defensive numbers still being pretty good. And we've been in the top 3 defensively most of conference play. I think right now we sit, some analytical sites have us second, some of them have us first, and I think that's a positive. I think it's always been the case. If you want to compete for a championship in this league, you got to be good defensively. Offensively, we've started to trend a little bit upward, which is good. And when the ball has been moving more, our offensive numbers have grown. And when the ball has stuck, we haven't gotten quite the quality of look. We haven't gotten the movement. We haven't gotten the cutting that we need to really earn to be good offensively. And I think here lately, if you look at Saturday's performance, we shoot 40% from 3. Chattanooga, we shoot 40% from 3. Assists have gone up. Turnovers have gone down, and just the wildness, all of a sudden 3-point shooting trends up, so it's been good to see. This is as proud of a group as I've been in 7 years of doing this at this point in the year, because of what they've overcome. And some is public and a lot of it's private, and this group has overcome more than probably 2 of my 3 teams added together in a stretch of a season. And to see them, to play the first 2 league games without high-scoring performers, to see us be in position that we're in, to clearly in a league that's got a lot of parity and could go a lot of different directions, to see them continue to push to find, how do we get to connection? How do we get to us? How do we find the best version of ourselves late in the year? I'm really proud of what they've overcome and how we've been able to get here. And, JP and Marcus have done a great job in terms of, the 2 players that carry a lot of the weight from a scoring standpoint. But we've had a lot of other guys step up. And, Garrett, the teammate and the energy that he's bringing, Ben Vanderwall, his insertion into the starting lineup, and the effort and the toughness and the winning plays that he's given us. PJ, just continues to get better and better. And Cooper Bowser keeps growing, right? Tyrese has had good impact on the games as well. And, getting Alex back Saturday was great. I thought he played really hard. I thought he played with a great spirit. And then Carter continues to give us good stuff in that backup point guard position as well. So, teams come together at the right time, and we got a lot left still to play for. We got these 2 games coming up ahead, and then we all go to Asheville where it will all shake out.
I'll start us off this week, Bob. You have held 4 of your last 5 opponents to less than 70 points, and even the Sanford loss, you held them to 13 below their season average and 23 below what they average at home. You referenced your defense a minute ago. What's been the difference in this last 2.5, 3 weeks?
Well, the defense has been a little bit of a journey. The game is changing a little bit, as we know, and more space. Coaches are putting more shooters out there. Ball screen coverages are getting a little bit more interesting with guys setting ball screens to be able to shoot. And so the ability to put 2 on the ball has gotten a little bit harder. And we've always done that historically. We've been a heavy hedge team, and really try to fill the lane up and really try to fly around. And, we tried to adapt with the modern game, so to speak, a little bit. And, we were playing some drop coverages, and we were doing some different things that, would help us to quote unquote stay on shooters and keep the game a little bit more in a non-rotational state. And just to be honest with you, it just wasn't working. It just didn't quite fit us with some of our personnel. And what we were doing was we weren't turning people over, and then people were hitting an extremely high percentage of their shots around the basket, and they were getting a greater than average amount of shots at the basket. And when you take those three things, that's a recipe for disaster, right? Not turning people over and then letting them get to the basket and then convert a high percentage of the basket. And so really what we've had to do, going back to my roots a little bit, we've put two on the ball. We've gotten the guys more in the gaps, and we've been rotating a little bit more, and it's made us a little bit more aggressive. We had a much more aggressive game plan Saturday. We hedged their guards, and we blitzed the post, and same thing with Chattanooga. And it's the hardest ball screen coverage to execute. And when you put a lot of shooters out there, it can be really, really hard to execute it. But it's made us play with more aggression and more energy. And the floor's just been tighter. The floor's been tighter. We've loaded the ball better. We've gapped the ball better, and we've tried to make the rim less available. And we're now we're number one in the league in 3-point percentage defense, which is a big piece of why our defense is statting out well. But if we can figure out this rim piece and continue to make that better, it's only going to allow us to potentially have the best defense in the league.
Coach, as you go down the stretch, have you found continuity offensively in your starters and the guys that are coming off the bench?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's right now at this point, it allows these guys to play with calmer minds when they just know at least what they're getting. And sometimes, from my experience in this era, if they know what they're getting and they know what to expect, even if it's not quite as much as they want, it still is better than it changing game to game. And I think to have a chance to win a championship, you gotta get continuity. You gotta eliminate the stress of like, hey, can my role change? And we had a pretty long team meeting last week, and just trying to help the team understand like roles aren't going to change at this point. At this point, it's all about role acceptance. And there's situations that, for me as a coach, it's really easy to look at it and say, hey, who are our 5 best players, right? I think a lot of times the fans look at it like that. Hey, who are the 5 best players? Just get them out there, and then, hey, but it's not so much who are the best 5 players, it's what's the best 5 for us in terms of how we're moving the ball, how we're playing together, the spirit that's being injected onto the court, the values of the program that are being played with. And I think we felt like we had an energy issue. We felt like we looked like for a while there we didn't like each other, and I don't think that was necessarily true, but we just didn't really have a lot of emotion on the court. And this game needs to be played with emotion. I'm a firm believer in that. I think you don't want to be emotional, but you want to play with emotion and connection and personality, right? And just seeing guys making plays together, and they celebrate them together, and there's a joy of working with one another. And we felt like, coming off of the Mercer game, that we were a pretty energyless program out there. And Mercer obviously played well, and it was to take no credit away from them. Now they've beaten us, Sanford and Greensboro, and Macon. But a lot of it, like we just didn't feel when we're playing the game. It didn't look, it didn't appear that we had a synergy out there that really gives you an opportunity to be greater than the sum of your parts. And so coming off that game, from that point to now, it's been a big deal. Like, not so much focused on who are the best players, right? Like, who's going to give us the most connection and energy out there. The two that have really helped it have been Garrett and Ben. And they play with a smile. They like big plays. They like energy. The celebrations. And then all of a sudden, what happens is you start to look around, and then now, JP looks freer, right? Looks happier out there, right? Mark plays with a little bit of a stoic presence to him. And some of that you don't want to necessarily ask him to change, but you want him, greats around here. Matt Rafferty played with a little bit of a stoic presence to him, but he still celebrated big plays, right? There was still some energy and some connection being given to teammates. And I think, PJ's kind of the same way. He played with a little bit of a stoicism as well. So what do we put around them to try to get this thing a little bit more uplifting and a little bit more energized, so when we get in the hard patches of the game, that we don't fall apart. And, I think it's clearly paid off. Basketball is a game of connection. And, so we're gonna stick with the starting lineup. That's not gonna change. This is gonna be the starting lineup for the rest of the season. And, we're also committed to getting Cooper Bowser those 10 minutes, give or take on different nights, just not because it's some kind of developmental deal. It's merited, like we don't win at Citadel, we don't win at ETSU without him. And it gives us a rim protector, going back to what I was talking about defensively. And then, Tyrese and Alex and Carter, how do those minutes shake in terms of the needs during the game to be bigger, to be smaller, to get more guards out there, to get more shooters out there, to get more rebounding out there. We've just got at that point coach the game. And, we've laid all that out to the team. The team's fully aware of it. And as I tell them frequently, clear is kind. Like unclear is unkind. And if we can be clear with it, then at that point it's on them to buy into it and to go do what we have to do to get the best version of this group. And, I feel like we're at that point where we've got a little bit of clarity on that.
Coach, you take on Western Carolina on Wednesday. They're playing really well right now. I think they won their 20th game last time out, and in rather convincing fashion on the road. And I think Woolbright only had 11 points. So just talk about the challenges of facing a team that's really good defensively and has had some great atmospheres at home this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going up to Cullowhee, and they've done a great job. And Justin, last year you could see it coming. And I think they finished fourth in the league last year. This year they got a lot of those guys back. It's a little bit like us last year. They returned some guys with a final year of eligibility, and they've got a lot of firepower. And they got a unique player in Woolbright, a classic point forward. That's going to have the ball in his hands a lot and creates a lot of different challenges in terms of how to defend him. And then you've got a lot of shooting around it, with Jackson and Jones and other guys that they bring off. And, they obviously put their center Lampkin down at the rim and, just let him protect, which is giving them really, really good defensive numbers. And so, the game here was a classic. Obviously JP hit the shot to give us that win, and was a low scoring affair on both sides. And, both teams competed at a high level. Both teams played really, really hard. And we fortunately made one more play than they did to win the game. But it's going to be a heck of a challenge. We're going on the road. And this team's been better on the road. We had struggled on the road, and that was something that we really had to do a better job of. But, to go to Johnson City and get that win, it's hard to win up there. And then to have an opportunity to be the first team to win in Birmingham was, even though it didn't go our way, to be able to mentally put ourselves in position to go down 10 and fight back and to show some resiliency in a hard environment, I think is growth for this group. And we're going to need every bit of that on Wednesday. They've done a great job with the crowd. I haven't been in there yet, but the lights on TV and all that stuff. You got a national TV game. I think this will be our 4th national TV game in the last 4 weeks or 5 weeks, something like that. At ETSU, Greensboro here, Chattanooga here, now at Western Carolina. And so continuing to build our brand nationally, continue to expose the program on the TV audience and the university and the TV audience, I think is another great opportunity for our program and our institution.
The two Wofford games were almost exactly a month apart. They were sort of opposite at Spartanburg. I thought Wofford seemed more motivated, got more loose balls all over the floor, blocking out and rebounding. The same thing was true in reverse Saturday. How much of that was due to your preparation of what you'd done wrong, and how much of that was due to an electric home crowd in response to what they had over there? I mean, does the crowd become an inciting factor in, probably I don't know, everybody plays energetic in every game, but it seems like to me, all the guys getting loose balls on the floor wearing Furman, and the reverse was true at Wofford.
Well, I mean, and I'm not being sarcastic when I say this, but, you know, if you walked in on Saturday and there was nobody here versus walking in on Saturday and seeing it full like it was, would it change your prediction of how we're gonna play? Yeah, right, like, this is a game of energy. I mean, at the end of the day, like, the harder playing, most energetic, connected team's probably gonna win the game 95% of the time. So any element that you can add to increase and improve that energy is gonna be a positive. So that's why you see all these football stadiums, you know, creating the lights, creating the sound, right? I went to the South Carolina Furman game and they're blacking this thing out after the third quarter and they got these red lights and all this madness going on. Like, I mean, why are they spending all this money on this? It's to create energy, right? And I think the more that you can create energy in your home and environment, it's going to impact the noise of the facility and the advantages you have. I think, you know, when we went there, they had that, right? I mean, I think one of their players post-game said it was the biggest crowd of the year, you know, and they fed off of that. They fed off of that energy. They were the aggressor, and we got on our heels. And, you know, we come here on Saturday, I think it's our 6th or 7th game has been close to capacity. And of course, I mean, just like the Chattanooga game, you know, like, of course that stuff matters. And I think that you're always, it's why I spend some of the day before the Wofford game to go to the student center and to spend time with our students, right? To make myself visible and available, because we want energy in the building. And, you know, I think that's something where if you get on the ESPN app and you just start looking at leagues, I think there's a couple things that are really interesting right now. I do it sometimes before I go to bed, just looking at my friends and how their programs are doing. And you just pull up a league and you see two trends. You see one, there's a lot of balance from the top to the middle, and even going towards the bottom. You see a lot of leagues separated by 2 or 3 games within about 8 teams. And that's as high as the Big 12, that's as low as, you know, low major leagues. There's not this, wow, this team's got a 7-game lead on first place, and then the 8th place team has no chance to beat anybody, right? You're seeing a ton of parity. Well, then if you go on that same, if you look over and they got the home record and the away record, you're seeing these huge gaps, right? You're seeing these huge differences of like, hey, 10-2 at home, 3-8 on the road. And you're seeing that with ranked teams in college basketball, right? You're seeing that all over the country. And I think there's a number of different factors that are feeding into that. But I think what it's also gonna give you the ability to do, like, if you can win on the road in today's time, you're gonna create even a bigger advantage for yourself. And so you've got to be able to identify how do you have to be able to play to go win games on the road, and that has to be a really, really big deal. And a lot of times it's how can you emotionally respond to environments? How can you emotionally respond when you're not maybe scoring like you want to score because they're playing a little bit more energized defense based on their home environment? Can you stay resilient? The same thing we had to do with Sanford. I mean, it was electric in there, you know, like, and we got down and we weren't playing great, but we hung in there. And then we were able to make a run, and we were able to give ourselves a chance to win the game. And I think right now in college basketball, you go on the road, like, you better bring it. And I think you can see that in all over, in every single level of college basketball right now.
Bob, I want to go back to the defensive piece for just a moment. Previous 2 or 3 years, if you had a breakdown defensively, you had the best rim protector in the league who could come from the backside or whatever and clean up mistakes in Jalen Slauson. And we saw him do it time after time. With his presence gone, did that highlight the fact that guys have to be more conscious about what they're doing defensively and not make as many mistakes because you didn't have that electric rim protector there to clean up mistakes that had been made?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, you take off regardless of just the rim protection. I mean, a documented defensive player of the year and then a documented player of the year in the league, you take him off the floor, and then, oh, by the way, you have another 3-time all-league guy that's playing playing in Europe right now and you take him off the floor, yeah, you're gonna have some deficiencies that you have to improve in, and you have to get better from, and you're not really gonna know those until you start playing the game. And, you know, our hope going into the year, we knew that Slauson protected, and I don't know if protected is really the right word, coupled Garrett very well, right? And they had a really good synergy to them. And we could figure out which matchup we wanted to go with and how we wanted to scheme it up defensively. And our goal going into the year was Tyrese should be able to fill what Slauson was able to do from a defensive standpoint. High-level rebounder, right? Strong, physical athlete, has verticality at the rim. And then as we start navigating the year, we weren't shooting, we weren't scoring the ball well enough in some of these games. And so then we went towards Alex at the 4. Well, offense got better, and there for a little while, defense got better, especially in the games where we were able to switch people. And where we struggled with that lineup is when we couldn't switch people. You know, your Brown Jones, your McCrary's, that presented some challenges. And so now, you know, we've kind of not necessarily reverted back to where we started, but we did start that lineup in Johnson City with Tyrese and Garrett playing together. And we realized that, hey, we've got to be in position to see what the game gives us and see what the opponent gives us, and we've got to be able to go back and forth if we need to. You know, the 4 probably is the biggest variable positionally in this league in terms of what you're going to see on a given night. And you might see a big guard, you might see a traditional 4, you might see a guy that can be a 5'4" or a 4'5", and you've got to be able to go back and forth of how you're going to defend and then also still be able to score the ball. And so, has it been a learning curve? Absolutely. But is it also why we've committed those 10 minutes to Cooper? You know, some people think I'm doing that just because he's 6'11" and I think he's going to be really good one day. You know, that's nonsense. You know, like I don't just put guys out there for next year. You know, like that's not. I've never done that. You know, Jalen Slauson didn't play a ton his freshman year. I knew Jalen Slauson was going to be really good, but like I didn't just parade him out there just for the sake that I hope he's happy. You know, like we're going to put guys out there to try to go win the game. And this idea that Cooper's playing because it's some long-term investment, like we're not winning at ETSU without Cooper Bowser. Like we put him in the game and we said, hey, don't leave the paint, protect the rim. Well, then they quit making all those layups. And then now we're able to get the ball in transition. Now we got him on the rim and we got him around 3 or 4 shooters. It's hard to guard, right? Citadel, same thing. Like we don't win the game at Citadel without Cooper Bowser. And part of that has been because we haven't had the rim protection that we had when we had Slaw, and he gives you an element of that. And so can we get him 10 minutes? Can we get him 15 minutes some nights? You know, I think those are the things where we've had to kind of adapt and just knowing that the game's gonna present different things, even in different flows and fluctuations of the game itself, and we've gotta have a plan for all sides.
Coach, tough loss at Sanford, Princeton, Tulane. How difficult has it been to then turn the page after a tough loss and get ready for the next one?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Tom. I don't have social media. I don't look at message boards and all that stuff. You know, we want to have an energized fan base, and we want to have people to care. If you don't, then you probably don't have a lot of people following you and are excited about your program. But one of the things I have kind of heard a little bit of rumblings on is this team doesn't close. You know, this team needs to figure out how to finish, which is complete nonsense. And the reality of this is this team's been in a bunch of close games, okay? I think we closed the Western game here. I think we closed the game at Citadel down 18. I think we closed the game in Johnson City down 11 with 7:15 to go. And this idea that like this team, like no team's gonna close every game, right? Like they're gonna show the documentary tonight. And I think they're probably gonna talk about the Penn State game that we lost by 3. We didn't close that game. You know, or when Mike Bothwell missed the shot to send the High Point game in overtime, 84-81. Wow, man, that team can't close. Like, that's college basketball. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some. This team has been in a bunch of close games, and we've won our share and we've lost our share. It typically regresses to the mean. This team, I felt like for a stretch there in December, you know, I've never been a part of an unluckier team. You know, I mean, it just felt that way with the injuries, with, you know, the results of some games, and things not going our way. But you know what? We've had our share of the ball bouncing our way here in the last 2 months. And it hadn't always bounced our way. You know, I think, you know, yeah, I wish Campbell would have missed that 3 the other night, and we'd have gotten the rebound and they would have had to foul us, you know, or we would have communicated the switch correctly. That'd been great. But I do know this about this group. This group was 6-9 at one point. And there was a lot of people that wrote this group off. And this group has won 10 or 14 since that point. And they've put themselves in position that everybody in the league, nobody in this league knows who's gonna win this tournament, but everybody in this league knows we'll have a shot. And at the end of the day, that's where you've gotta be at the end of the year. And this team had every reason to pack this thing up early. And if we'd have listened to the noise and all the bantering, guess what we would have done? We would have done that. But we've had guys emerge, we've had guys grow, and growth is not always easy. And growth comes a lot of times in hard situations. This team has not quit. And man, you go through that Princeton swing, and you go through when your leading scorer is getting hurt, and then you go to Tulane, and you go through that, and then you come here and you lose to a D2. There's a lot of programs in the country that they would have walked in the league and they would have had no shot. And that's when I say, like, this is the most proud I've been of a team in 7 teams. It's because this team's had to overcome more. And that team last year had to overcome some things as well. But what I've got to do as a leader is to continue to teach them that the biggest thing you can take away from sport to life is the ability to respond. And the biggest thing that you can take from sport to life is you're not always going to control what happens to you, but you're always going to control that response. And I think when this team gets back from Birmingham on Wednesday, how many people got to the arena on Saturday and thought, hey, is there going to be a letdown? Is there going to be a lull? How are they going to respond to this? Well, it looked like a team that knew how to respond. And if that's the mechanism that they've grown from, then hey, you know what? This team has nobody that has no eligibility left after this year, right? And so now all of a sudden, you know, this group stays together and they take everything that they've learned from, then hey, we don't know how this story is going to be written, but also what are they going to propel themselves to in the future, right? Like those are the unknowns. And what you have to keep doing is you have to keep responding and you have to keep growing. And if you win one, you got to come in here and you got to figure out a way to get better today. If you lose one, you got to come in here and you got to figure out how to get better today. And I think this group has kept that mentality.
Fast forward a little bit to Asheville, that's played obviously on a neutral court. Would you say your team is more confident because of the experiences, the hard you talked about they've been through this year?
Yeah, you know, John, that's a fair question. Probably one I haven't given a ton of thought to. I'm really focused on finding a way to win this Western game, and obviously, you know, the finale in here on Saturday versus Mercer. I haven't gotten my mind to Asheville yet. You know, I think we all know that we're going to be defined on what we do in Asheville, and we know that Asheville's waiting for us, and it's going to come, and it's going to come quick. But I also think these 2 games are massive, and I think this game on Wednesday night is a huge game. And you know, once we get to Saturday, it's 4:30, and we've closed this regular season out. And I'm talking to you guys about the Mercer game. I think I'll be a little bit more prepared to answer a question like that. But at this point right now, everything I'm doing right now is find a way to beat Western Carolina.
In spite of your opinion on that, I know that the president of the NCAA has floated positively expanding the tournament from 68 to 96. Obviously that has a bearing on this level. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
You know, Monty, my opinion's not gonna matter on that. You know what I mean? Like, I think the NCAA tournament is something that, you know, my dad was a doctor. If you didn't have a fever, you're going to school. There's no questions asked. He loved college basketball too. And somehow or another, I used to be able to talk him in to let me stay home on Thursday. But if I came downstairs and told him my stomach hurt, I was probably going to school. And there's a sacredness to that NCAA tournament. There's a uniqueness in college athletics with that NCAA tournament. It bonds every level of Division I college basketball. It connects every fan of sport in the country. And everybody kind of just stops on those Thursday and Fridays, maybe doesn't watch a college basketball game all year, and they're filling out a bracket. I think it's a very fragile thing, you know, and listen, I was a business major, double majored in accounting. I know how money works and I know how revenue works. And I know there's a lot of money in it. And there's a tendency when there is a lot of money in it to figure out how to get more money in it. And when you can put more high majors in it, and you can get more people there, and you can get more travel, and you can get more, and you can, hey, I get it. The TV contracts probably go up. I don't think it's gonna be a situation where they add teams and they say, okay, now we're gonna take a second one from the SoCon. I don't think that's gonna happen. You know, I think it's gonna be, how do we get more high major teams in this? And, you know, if that's what they choose to do, then hey, you know, just like the college football playoff expansion, you know, I don't think this is an expansion because they decided they're gonna make less money, right? I think it's probably a situation where they figured out they're gonna make a lot more money. And if they figure out there's a way to make more money, then probably in time, they'll add a few teams to it. And it used to be 64, right? And it went to 68, and it's kept its sacredness. You know, the tournament hadn't been changed a whole lot. I do think it would change drastically if the mid-majors get pulled out. You know, I think if this is a high major tournament and you don't have the upsets and you don't have what defines March Madness, you know, I think if you don't have the FAU runs and the Loyola runs and the George Mason runs and, you know, the Princeton Sweet 16s and, you know, our situation last year, you don't have those first round magical moments, I do think it pulls from it. But those decisions will be made well above my pay grade, and we'll just take it as it is, and we'll show up and play where they tell us to go play.
Bob, that takes care of everything from the media here. I'll just ask you for a closing statement, and then inside of that, just a thought about the premiere of the documentary tonight. I know you're hyper-focused on Western Carolina, but you're gonna take a chance, or take an opportunity to celebrate the release of the documentary.
Yeah, we got a premiere going tonight downtown, you know, at the Peace Center, and you know, I've had the opportunity to watch the episodes already that will be shown tonight, because I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to be there the whole time tonight, but I'm gonna be there as long as I can. But I wanted to get a view of them beforehand. You know, they're emotional, I'll tell you that. I mean, just you know, episode 1 of us losing in that championship game, and having to relive that, you know, I think, I don't know how many people I don't know if I've said this publicly or not, but I refuse to watch the game. I still haven't to this day. And, you know, having to watch that right there and see kind of what led up to it and the heartbreak from it, you know, it just kind of pulled the scab off the wound a little bit. And then to know still what was ahead and to already know how it finished and how it played out, just reminds you of the incredible story and really the connection of that team and of those players and the maturity, you know, to realize that, hey, we don't want our journey to end like this. And, you know, it's not always, look, it's 43 years that this place went without a tournament game, and we took probably the hardest road to get there. But I think we probably also had one of the most rewarding roads to get there, and we have a picture of life and perseverance and connection and endurance that nobody that experienced that will be able to be taken away from that. And you know, I think it's just a cool little reminder, you know, that you don't always know why you're at where you're at, but life has a way of revealing it as you go through life on the back end, and you can look back and say, you know what, that was really hard, but it probably propelled us to a place that we couldn't have gotten to without it. And, you know, I think that's watching episode 1 and episode 4, you know, of both tournament runs. That's the reminder in it. And, you know, as small as Mike going back to the same spot, you know, that he collapsed on, and to go back to that spot and point to it, you know, that was his way of saying, like, hey, trust in the heart, right? And keep moving ahead. And, life's a tricky thing, but it's all a journey. And, you know, you're just reminded, you know, especially in this, you know, just how we're chasing moments, you know, like sometimes you think it's destinational and you kind of get that in your mind, and it's really not. Like, it's a journey and you're chasing moments, and then you're gonna go to the next moment. And, you know, and then you're gonna go to the next season. But it was a special group, it was a special team, and it was a team that chose to stay together and chose to really try to say, hey, we wanna get this to the finish line. And not only did they get it to the finish line, they got to take another pretty good little extra step there and experience something they'll never forget. With that, you know, in closing, I do wanna add, you know, unfortunately, we're gonna be playing in Cullowhee on Wednesday during Bryce's memorial service on campus. And with us not being able to be there, I do hope that the Furman community and all of our students and all of our teams will go out, and I know they will, go support Bryce. And I hate we're gonna miss that. I hate we're not gonna be here, but I do want everybody to know we'll be there in spirit, we'll be there in thought. We continue to pray for their family, the football team. I've talked to a few football players, and something that still weighs on our hearts. And you know, I hope their family's doing well, and I just want them to know that we're continuing to pray for them and support them and keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
Coach, very well said. With that, I'll just remind you that final two games of the regular season this week, 7 o'clock, national television, Wednesday at Western Carolina, radio pregame 6:30, and then the final regular season game in this building in its current configuration. And every fan who comes here on Saturday against Mercer will get a commemorative ticket before this thing is gutted and reopened in 2025. So that's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, matchup with the radio pregame at 1:30, and of course available on ESPN+. That will take care of everything for this week's edition of Inside Furman Basketball. For head coach Bob Ritchie and all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you. So long, everybody.